What's up, everybody? I just wanted to quick go over why I split up the front squats and then the front rack hold into 2 back-to-back days rather than what we did on the first one. So the first one is really just like a tester, right? See where you were at, where your baseline was with those things, and then kind of increase as that. So as you increase in weight and effort and intensity, you need a little bit more rest time. So I decided to flip it and add a break in between. So that being said, is that your goal is still to do the Tabata front rack hold with the front squat weight or the Anderson squat weight that you did yesterday. So what you're going to do is, rather than just prep your body rather than going right into that weight and just going, I am going to do a little bit of a heavier hold before, 3-4 seconds, nothing crazy, heavier than I am going to do for the hold. Then I will back off the weight and go to the prescribed weight that I do with my Anderson squat that I did yesterday. Okay, so that way I'm getting a little bit more. My CNS is primed, and it's not the heaviest thing that I felt today. And you still get that like warm-up, build-up effect as you go through. Then we're going to go through, obviously, our core primer, going through the 50 air squats with the alternating leg lift, with the rotation, and then you're going to add in those twisting seated knee tucks. So here we go. Hey, everybody, as you get into the main portion of the workout today, or at least the warm up into it, might have a lot of questions or be curious to know why squats are such a big part of workouts, or just doing like a core workout. Why would I need to work out my legs? Well, a couple different things because of that. First, quads are connected down into the hip flexors, the lower abs, and all the way up through the core obliques and things like that, okay? Especially that's how we predominantly get most of our movement, is from the lower body and our trunk while you're moving around. Secondly, there is that when you train larger muscle groups, it promotes more testosterone growth, and without getting into like deep into the science of everything, basically when you end up training more muscle groups and bigger ones, it promotes more muscle growth and just teaches your body to be a little bit more efficient when you're actually growing those growing those strength purposes, growing for size, growing definition. All that stuff is created the same, right? So that's kind of why there's a lot of legs in here, and why there's heavy legs specifically, because it really gets deep into a lot of those, stabilizer muscles down through the feet, coming up through the lower leg, into the knees, and up through the hips, and of course the low back and the trunk for stabilization purposes as you go through with everything. All right, today warm up 50 of these squat to little bicycle kick crunch as you're standing. So really good way to turn on the hip flexors, open up the lower back and the core with the squats, getting that full range of motion. What I mean is, when I say full range of motion, is that when you squat, your hips go below the top of the knee. So some people consider that CrossFit standard, or below parallel, or however you want to think about it yourself. But that's what I think about when I say full range of motion, is that you're getting essentially 90% knee bend or more for most of us when you're getting into these squats, when you think about that. So that's a good thing to think about, good standard to keep yourself to. If it's deep for you, lower back pain, maybe you have knee tightness or anything like that, or ankles, various and a variety of different things that could come up to restrict that movement. Just give yourself a target that's low for you to go down, tap your hips to the bottom of your butt to, and stand up out of it. That way you're constantly maintaining that full range of motion for you as you go through that movement, and things like that. So you have a constant feedback cue that you're going down. Oh, I'm going to touch this, I'm going to stand up, then I'm going to move through that range of motion. So as you get into it. Now, with this next one, really like turn on all those little core muscles in there. Now we continue that rotation. Now you're holding the lower back up off the ground, pulling those knees up to opposite elbow. It's basically like a elevated or a step up and advanced version of a bicycle crunch, right? So a lot of us have done those where you keep the low back down. Well, today doing it from your glutes to really try and engage a little bit more. Now, as we're getting into this barbell or weight or whatever you're getting into, as these weights continue to work up in weight and get heavier for you, it is still extremely important to warm up properly, warm up front rack, warm up to that weight, even though you might have done it last week or, a couple days before, or even the day before, like we did yesterday with the squats, to warm up the same muscle groups, okay? So you're not just putting on that weight and then, okay, cool, let's start my Tabata. No, warm up to it, take your time, turn your body onto it, get acclimated, maybe even go to something a little bit heavier, make smart jumps for you. Everybody's got different weight jumps that they train, that they're comfortable taking. So just think about it, plan it out, have a good game plan and an idea when you are warming up to a weight that's heavy for you so that it's nothing out of the ordinary. It's nothing crazy that you're just, I'm just going to go here and make a huge jump and make this happen, right? Your body's not ready for it. It's not warmed up. Even though you've been moving around, maybe you did some extra warm-ups, it's not ready to just take on an external load like that. It's called your CNS, your central nervous system. Has to be ready, has to be able to dial in and get really, really acclimated to that weight, essentially, right? And for me specifically, I like to warm up into the actual squat itself, right? That's the movement that I'm practicing, that we're getting ready for, to get that whole body primed for it. So me, I will actually go through a couple of these front squats. I like to pause in the bottom and really make sure everything's warm, and really get used to that position with how the core is braced, how my hips feel, things like that, as you get into, even though it might just be, we're just going to hold a front rack hold today. So getting used to that full range of motion, getting used to your body and turning it on is really, really beneficial and will keep you out of injury, honestly, which ends up pushing a lot of us back or, slowing down our track on goals and things like that, especially with this program that's 42 days straight. There's no real days off, right? So if you miss one, all of a sudden now everything's pushed back, and you don't want to do it just because your body isn't ready to move quite yet because you weren't ready to move and just weren't ready for that weight. So you don't want to push yourself to injury, pushing yourself to a point of fatigue or even failure. So if you push yourself to a point like, I can't make this, that's fine. That's different than a point of injury, right? We all know when that is. Maybe you get a little scared. Maybe you're afraid to try something. That's fine. Make a mental note of it, where that weight is at for you or what that movement or position is, so that next time when you can give it a go, then you're at least a little bit closer to trying that movement, or you're actually giving it a shot this time. So things to think about as you set up here. So I've done this before. It's about a front rack hold, going up a little bit heavier than they did the first time, especially compared to that Anderson squat. Now, as some of you might be able to hold a little bit better or hold a little heavier weight than in comparison to the actual Anderson squat that you did. It is okay to go heavier on your Anderson squat, but as you know, this does add up quickly. The first 4 or 5 sets start to get fatiguing, but it's really those last 3 when your core starts to get tired and not quite ready for it. So just be prepared for that. Be smart. Know where you're at. Know your body. Know how you feel and how things work specifically for you, setting those weights up and making those jumps. I would not recommend a massive jump over what you've done. Now, if it's, you had a good day when you did your first set and not as good day when you did these next set of Anderson squats, that's perfectly fine, because honestly, you don't have to do the exact same weight. The goal would be to do the exact same weight, but if you are capable of doing more, 100% feel free to go up from there. But if you're doing, you don't want to do like 50% more or anything like that. So if you have 40 pounds and then you're one like, this was not too bad, I feel like I could do 50, 60 pounds. Go ahead, make that jump when you know your body, but don't be making like, I did 250 and now I'm going to try 300. That's a pretty hefty jump, especially when it gets heavy. So be prepared, be smart. Like I said, You're kind of your own coach on this one and policing yourselves, so know what to expect. I did a little bit heavier hold today above mine, so that as I set my weight and I take it off and prep for things, that the weight that I actually do the Tabata front rack hold with is not the heaviest thing that I have picked up that day. All right, here we go. It's about 8 rounds, 20 seconds of work, 10 seconds of rest. Make sure you stay very, very close because that 10 seconds does go by quick. Biggest thing with this one is I really try and keep my upper back engaged, keep my chest tall, keep my abs braced, and I'm always thinking about having air left in my lungs and encapsulating my core in my abdomen. Okay, so that doesn't mean that I'm just sitting here and I'm flexing and I'm trying to hold my breath. No, take a deep breath in, hold, brace against your stomach, deep, push your lungs and your belly out into your abs so everything is tight and engaged. That's how you properly brace your core. Think about anytime you do a plank or trying to push your lower back down into the floor, so you're engaging all 360 degrees of your core. Low back, obliques, lower abs, upper abs, everything you can think about that's from your trunk, right? Chest all the way up down to your hips, and obviously pushing through to the floor because you're holding the weight through your legs and your feet. So everything in there is connected, everything is tight, engaged properly because it all works together, right? It's not just one muscle group. We're not isolating anything. You're trying to hit the entire core, especially with this one. Heavy, they build up quickly. Anytime that there's a weakness or something that you don't brace properly, that thing is going to start to break down first. You'll feel it. So as you're doing these, if you feel like, oh, wow, my shoulders start to go out or my upper back, or you start feeling in your lower back or your abs, that is going to show you what typically is the weakest weakest area in your body in comparison to the other ones, right? The other ones might be able to handle a little bit better, but this one is going to be quite a bit substantially weaker. So that's something you could target, something you could think about and really focus on as you do those things. So something, food for thought as you're going through these. If you're like, wow, this really, really bugs me. This is something that I feel every single time. Why is this happening? Just your body telling you that that's the weakest point, and that's what's going to break first, right? When I say break, I just mean give out, right? So if you think about like any kind of building structure, when something happens, there's usually a weak point that ends up going out first, and that's the same thing on your body's built, right? It's all part of one system, and when one part of the system is weak, that thing gives out, then the whole system gives out. So you can think about it that way as you're going through these front rack holds. By going 25 pounds heavier than the first time, that went significantly better. Definitely felt it more in the low back, which is not a bad thing, but as long as it's a manageable and you can breathe with tension. So I mean by that, you're constantly keeping air down around your stomach, which trying to fill up your lungs, which encapsulates the spine, which keeps everything stable. But then it definitely puts a lot of that pressure, not just on the skeletal structure, but on the muscular structure as well, coming through all the stabilizers and front, back, side, and then trying to keep the elbows through and shoulders up and staying engaged. You definitely feel lats, shoulders, arms start to go, but all that stuff is connected, right? It's anything between essentially your clavicle, which is your shoulder collarbones, all the way down towards the base of the pelvis, right? Through the hips and attaching to the femurs. That's all part of the core. It's all attached. Glutes, low back, you know. Everybody thinks that core and abs are what we want, everything you see in the mirror. Well, most of the time the actual strength relies behind in the posterior chain, in which you don't see in the mirror, okay? When you think about everything behind is much more beneficial than stuff in the front, okay? Good work, everybody. Keep trying to improve, even if it's small, 1 to 2 pounds each time. Or let's say if on this one your Anderson squat went up like mine did considerably, feeling more fresh or recovered or whatever it might be, it just might be a better day for you. And you fail your front squat or your front rack hold, not a bad thing. Then you just try and do the same exact Anderson squat next time you see this, and same exact set on your Tabata front rack holds. Say you only got 5-6 rounds today, see if you can try and make the 6 rounds a little bit better, and then try and get into that 7. If you fail on 7, hey, that's still progress, right? Failure is not a bad thing. That just means you're pushing yourself to your absolute limit. Today, I was successful. Well, guess what? That means I need to go up, right? Try and make things a little bit cleaner, a little bit better, things like that. So, good work, everybody. Keep it up. I will see you on day 18.